I think I've finally realized something about the modern retro motorcycle category, and I think I need to have another one of these in my personal stable as soon as possible. Because as motorcycle trends come and go and bikes become more sanitized, bug-like, and/or stupidly fast, the modern retro category is reminding us of what motorcycling is meant to be. They're romantic, interesting, and characterful, yet nowadays, they also have modern components, reliable engines, and beautiful fit and finish. And best of all, most of these modern retros have serious performance chops. You don't have to ride something that is incredibly efficient at turning gasoline into noise without the pesky byproduct of power. Looking at you, Harley-Davidson. And in a motorcycling world that is catering towards older, wealthier buyers, we should really thank the modern retro category for carrying the torch and supplying boomers with nostalgia bait, because it keeps the motorcycle world turning, baby. These bikes are comfortable enough to ride all day, have enough on offer to keep you entertained, and are beautiful enough to where you won't feel any embarrassment to show people what you ride. They're mature, effortlessly cool, and yes, nearly all of them come with a single round headlight, because I think that's what's most important to you guys, if the comments are to be believed. I've opined about this specific Moto Guzzi at great length, and you all know that I think it's one of the best modern retros on the market today. Maybe not the absolute best, Triumph still holds a very special place in my heart, but certainly one of the best. And you may also remember that this particular model is a giveaway motorcycle on my website, GameNative.co, and today is the very last day you can register to win it. Head over to the site, become a member, and you'll get your chances locked and loaded to win. You can also pick up some merch. We have hats, hoodies, t-shirts, plenty of new designs, and every dollar you spend will be an entry to win, subject to our multiplier, which is currently at 100x for the end of this sweepstakes. And best of all, if you become a member today, you'll get entered to win the next bike we are launching the next week, which is none other than a brand new Aprilia 210 V4 factory. We're kicking things off in a big way for the riding season, and I don't want you to miss it. Now, I want to spend some time and discuss what makes this category singularly unique in motorcycling and why I may want to pick up another modern retro bike before it's too late. As many of my longtime viewers will know, I was the proud owner of a Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled for about 6.5 years. Emphasis on was, since I no longer own it. I debated making a video about its departure, but I've often said that this channel isn't about me, it's about motorcycling. And I'll typically only talk about myself or my bikes if it's valuable to the audience. Otherwise, it's just yet another self-absorbed, narcissistic ego post, which truthfully, we need a lot less of that sort of thing here on YouTube. I put 17,000 miles on that sled, and I was the original owner. It was one of the coolest and most fun motorcycles I've ever had the pleasure of owning. When I bought it, I had no clue how to ride off-road. In fact, I just bought the bike because I fell in love with how it looked, and I liked the 2-valve air-cooled Desmo engine, which is definitely reason enough to buy a motorcycle. We get so wrapped up in the specs, the performance, that we lose sight of the simple realization. If you like a bike, just buy it. You can always figure out the rest later. Well, that's exactly what I did. I bought a 450-pound street bike that was lightly modified from the factory to bomb around some gravel roads, and I got to work trying to off-road it. After many spills, crashes, snapped parts, and broken dreams later, I quickly realized it wasn't much of an off-roader, and neither was I, and I decided to mostly keep it on road. But every time I swung a leg over the Scrambler, I would just fall in love all over again. The rumbly air-cooled twin fired up with remarkable reliability for how much I abused the bike, and I rode it as intended. But something started happening over the years. I got kind of fixated on performance, on wondering why I had this extra bike in my stable. And this became even worse when I had the opportunity to get an Aprilia Touareg 660, the bike you see right here. And it's a bike that I've long been interested in ever since I did the press launch in Sardinia back in 2021. And as I rode the Touareg more, I rode the Scrambler less. I thought to myself, why keep this Scrambler? The Touareg just does everything better, and it truly does. It rides better, it makes more power, it's better off-road, it has better wind protection. It's just hands down a better motorcycle at doing regular motorcycle things than the Scrambler. I sat with this thought for a few months as I watched my Scrambler collect dust in my garage, and I thought, well, I've done just about everything I wanted to do with my Scrambler, so why not let it go to a good home where it can continue being enjoyed? So I put it up for sale, and it got sold. I wasn't particularly sad. I really got my money's worth out of the bike. I paid about 13 grand for it back in 2019, and I sold it for $6,500. So if you don't count the consumables, maintenance, gas, oil, farkles, and other money spent, because let's be real, this is motorcycle boy math, and we have to keep it simple. It cost me about 38 cents per mile over 6 years. I have treasured memories and great stories with that machine, like the time I got stuck riding downhill on an icy mountain pass, or how I crossed the Mexico border with it and then had to bribe an official because it was listed under my business's name on the title and they didn't want to let me or the bike into the country, or how when I bought the bike, Ducati financing couldn't get me approved because I didn't have enough history with self-employed income, so I came back and bought it with all physical paper money just to spite them. The exuberance of youth. Those stories and memories mean so much more to me than any amount of money that I spent on the bike. It's just way more interesting. It's been almost 6 months since I let my Scrambler go, but riding the Guzzi has given me the itch for a modern retro again. The Touareg's wonderful, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have the same look-back factor or charm. I truly loved my Scrambler. I loved how it looked, I loved how it sounded, and I didn't really care that it wasn't the best performing motorcycle when I had it. And something is happening with motorcycles that makes the modern retro category something truly special right now. If you've been riding for a while, you've probably noticed an extremely rapid technological change with motorcycles in the last 10 to 15 years. We went from largely analog machines in the mid-2000s, which in and of themselves were light years ahead of their 80s and 90s counterparts, to bikes that nowadays have enough wiring to stretch across a whole football field. Okay, maybe not that much, literally, don't fact check me, but they're stuffed full of sensors, features, farkles, and bloat. And on top of that, the styling on a lot of these bikes are, well, let's just say they may not age very gracefully. Think of Yamaha's new products or KTM's products. Fantastic to ride, sure, capable, fast, reliable. Okay, the KTM isn't reliable, but you get my point, right? Ultimately, they're a bit cold. The modern retro category is the only one where manufacturers create bikes that are analog by necessity for both cost reduction or by design to retain an old school feel. Every other category sees new generations get bigger screens, more tech, more crap that detracts from the experience, but modern retros are remarkably simple and free from these frills. We're sort of used to this in the motorcycling world, but imagine for a moment that Ford made a resto mod version of the Mustang you could just go and buy at the dealership. No screens in the interior, a simple naturally aspirated V8, small and svelte, beautiful old school touch points. I mean, it's literally unthinkable. I genuinely believe these modern classic bikes are the last of the Mohicans. Much in the same way we look back fondly on the golden era of modern classic automobiles, think late 90s to mid 2000s, this generation of motorcycle right now will be thought of in the same way. We are quite literally living through the golden era of motorcycles before it's all about to get so much worse. Mandated EVs, limits on internal combustion, maybe protected zones where no emissions are allowed. Don't believe me? Think it's far-fetched? There are cities in Asia where this is already the norm. And truthfully, I don't hate that reality. Having a dense urban environment be quieter and cleaner is really nice, especially if it's more pedestrian and bicycle friendly. But man, I will miss firing up an internal combustion engine motorcycle and rolling through the city. Motorcycling will probably start to look more like equestrianism in the future, a pretty niche hobby. And if you're lucky enough to own a modern retro right now, hang on to it for dear life because I promise you they're not going to make many more of them in the future. The modern retro category is also one of the only ones that create true multi-purpose bikes that don't look painfully offensive or overly styled. And this is starting to change a bit because Triumph, of course Triumph is doing this, released their Trident 660 and Trident 800 models that seek to kind of split the difference between modern performance and old school vibes. But beyond the single round headlight, I don't think the styling is particularly successful. It looks more like a street triple with a lazy frame and geometry setup that's been crashed and needed a new headlight. It's not exactly to my taste, as many of you are aware. The modern retro bikes are multi-purpose because old school bikes were meant to be multi-purpose. You were supposed to just ride them. You didn't need to be coddled with windscreens, heated grips, and an 8-inch iPad strapped to the triple tree so you can fire up TikTok and lock into your Sigma grind set, relieving yourself of all past and future thoughts and existing purely in the present by scrolling. That's why I'm so captivated by the Moto Guzzi and the modern classic genre in general, because it has a gigantic gas tank, secret cruise control, shaft drive, and enough torque and handling to accomplish 95% of road riding tasks. And it does all of that while having character, charm, and a really unique engine layout, along with a very unique paint job. These sorts of motorcycles are for real deal motorcyclists, the kind that will just ride something and make it work because they love it. They don't need special features, hand-holding, or anything else. And I count myself among those sorts of riders, even though right now I have a very comfortable ADV that sees 99% street mileage at the moment. Kind of funny how that works. Back in the day, I just took my Scrambler and just did stuff with it. I rode it, I modified it, I crashed it, lived with it, and I loved it. I did huge days in the saddle with it, with the wind pummeling me, taking my feet and resting them above the handlebars to get some relief while I was in the middle of nowhere in West Texas coming back from Big Bend. And that leads me to my final point. Maybe I don't really need an ADV. It's that same creeping performance and optimization mindset that comes back to me much like I did with my Scrambler. Am I really using this vehicle as intended? No. Not really. I'm about to welcome our second kid into my family, which means I'm gonna have my hands full. The best I can hope for is a weekend ride that consists of 2 or 3 hours bombing around my favorite hill country roads here in Austin. Wouldn't something more oriented make sense? Maybe a modern retro? Maybe it's finally time for me to get the speed twin I've been talking about for years. Because when you feel the desire for a bike, and I mean really feel it, it doesn't go away. It happened with my Scrambler after a fateful test ride way back in 2016, where I just never stopped thinking about it. Then in 2019, I pulled the trigger. The Speed Twin is a similar story. I've never really stopped thinking about that bike. So maybe it's time for me to come home to Triumph and get the Speed Twin. Who knows? I can promise you it's not happening anytime soon since I'm about to endure some sleepless nights with our newborn, but I really do understand why modern retros are one of the most beloved categories in motorcycling right now, because they just feel right. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate it. Leave me a comment down below on your views about the modern retro category. Do you own one? Do you want to own one? Or are you a truly retro rider, riding something from like the 70s or something like that? Maybe you don't care about any of these bikes and you're just a nihilistic CF Moto futurist freak. Should I just buck up and get the Speed Twin? Who can say? Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out the link in the description for the Moto Guzzi giveaway, and stay tuned and locked in for the Aprilia Tuono V4 factory giveaway. I'll catch you guys in the next one.